Welcome to part 6 of the Spain and Morocco series, The Cold Wave That Made Me Stop Doing Shit I Hate. I am Angie Hawkins, the Inner Glow Coach. If you remember, last week we left off where I fainted in my room. I woke up, I didn't know what happened, and it was honestly a pretty traumatic experience. I didn't feel safe in my body, and the people around me were handling it with toxic positivity, which contributed me to feeling emotionally unsafe. But I took my power back and I was able to create my own emotional and physical safety. So then the next day, my neck was feeling better because the day after I fainted, I didn't go surfing because I fell on the door handle on my neck and then I must have fell on my face on the floor. So I was in so much pain. Well, first of all, I was in a ton of pain, but also I could not turn my neck to the left at all. And with surfing, you have to be able to turn your neck because when you're paddling for the wave, you still have to be able to look behind you to make sure nobody else is coming, that you're not dropping in on anyone, and also just kind of check out how the wave is forming in case you need to do any last minute adjustments. So it really was not a good situation for me to be surfing. So I didn't go surfing the day after I fainted. And then the following day, because, this was a surf retreat, so I was eager to learn about surfing and try surfing again because I really wanted to give the cold water surfing a chance. So even though I was still in a little bit of pain, I could at least turn my neck enough to be able to surf. But I get out in the water and the water was just so cold. It was the same situation all over again. It felt like the ocean was stabbing me in the face with an ice pick because the cold water just felt that jarring. And I was feeling a little bit more agile in the wetsuit, but being in a full body wetsuit, I just felt like a marshmallow. It is so hard to feel and be athletic when you feel like a marshmallow. So even just like the act of putting on the wetsuit, even though I was excited to try surfing again, like that started dampening my mood. And so I was trying again, I was toxic positivitying myself because I was like, it's fine. I love surfing. I love the ocean. I'm going to get out there and it's going to be fine. But I got out there and I realized I hate surfing in Morocco because the ocean is cold. It just wasn't enjoyable. But I just kept trying to focus on I'm here to learn more about surfing, just learn more about surfing. But as the session progresses, like for example, like a good wave came and I caught it. But another issue in the surf area was that there were so many surf schools that didn't know anything about surf etiquette. So a wave comes and I catch it and I had priority, but then other people started taking off, even though I was already on the wave. And because they were in my way, I had to pull off the wave. And for non-surfers, this is similar to if you're driving down the street and have the right of way, if cars were just pulling out in front of you. It's the same situation. So it's also kind of irritating because it's like, if I had priority and it just wasn't enjoyable for me at all. So I very quickly started to become frustrated because even though my focus, I was trying to focus on, okay, I'm just going to learn more about surfing, even if I don't enjoy it. I couldn't even learn more about surfing because it was almost impossible to ride a wave long enough to do anything on it. And then I don't know at what point, it might have been after that wave, but after one of my waves, I looked around to see where the rest of the retreat group was and our instructors, and I couldn't see them, which isn't totally surprising because I cannot see at a distance without my glasses, and I don't wear glasses or sunglasses when I'm in the ocean. So it's not totally surprising that I couldn't see them, but it's normally not a problem because people usually have an identifying characteristic, like a bathing suit, or maybe their surfboard is a certain color. But the problem in this surf spot is because it's cold water Everybody was wearing a full body black wetsuit, and everybody had rental boards. So they were either white or, like, I think some of the surf schools had foam boards, which I think were blue. So my point is, it looked very homogeneous because I could not identify anyone from anyone else from a distance. And the reason why this was an issue is because when I fainted, I didn't know the reason why. So there was this underlying anxiety. I did do some work to feel safe in my body, but there was still this thought of, what if it happens again? Because I didn't know why it happened. So there was nothing I could do to prevent it. So I started panicking because I was like, what if I faint in the water? Who's going to help me? And I started to have a mild anxiety attack. But again, this surf spot is super overcrowded. So I started to think logically, and it's like, you know what? Even if I did faint, the retreat group may not be able to come to my rescue, but there's so many other people in the water. Surely someone could help me. So I started to get less anxious about that. And I see like this really nice wave coming. So I'm like, screw them. I'm going to catch this wave. So I caught the wave, and shockingly for the crowd, I was able to ride it a pretty good distance towards the shore. And when I dismounted my board, the retreat group, they were nearby. They weren't right there, but I could at least see them because they were close enough for me to see. And I was so relieved. So I paddle over and I tell the retreat owner, I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I found you guys. I was so nervous I was going to faint again. And again, like, her attitude was just really dismissive. It was like, oh, you're not going to faint again. You'll be fine. And then she just kind of ignored me. And in all fairness, it was a valid, fear or a valid thing to think about. Because I could have fainted again. Like, neither one of us knew if I was or was not going to faint again. So it kind of bothered me that she was dismissive again. But again, I'm like, it's fine. I kept toxic positivitying myself. I'm just going to focus on surfing. I'm just going to focus on learning how to surf more. And then, so another wave comes. And again, it's just like everyone's dropping in on each other. It's just like a total madhouse. And I'm like, it's fine. I'm just going to regroup and catch another wave. So as I'm paddling, like the water is so cold. So even to paddle, it's like my hands were freezing. And I just had this moment. I was like, I hate this. I hate the cold water. I hate the wetsuit. I hate the reckless crowd. I'm not even learning because I can't surf because there's too many people. I'm not enjoying myself, and I'm basically in survival mode anytime I'm in the water. So that's making it really hard to even learn. And I was like, I hate this. And then I was like, wait, why am I doing this to myself? And the reason why this is notable is because I had spent like the first 40 years of my life doing shit that I didn't want to do. And it started in my childhood, which is somewhat understandable because up until 18, you're under the care of your caregivers. But after 18, it's like I went to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I hated school, and I was working full time and going to school full time, and I hated my life, but I went along with it because that's what my family and society wanted me to do. And then after college, I got a corporate job for over 20 years, even though I hated it and it was killing my soul. But society tells you, oh, that's the safe and secure and stable thing to do. So I went along with whatever society wanted me to do. And within those jobs, I overachieved because I was in the rat race to work harder and make more money, even though the corporate game doesn't reward the smartest and hardest working people. But you still get caught in that trap of, because you do get these intermittent rewards of getting promoted and getting more money. So you get caught up in that hamster wheel and the grind. And honestly, in hindsight, at the time, several of my workplaces were extremely toxic and unhealthy, but in hindsight, almost all of them were. But I had this mindset, you had to suffer to make money. You had to work hard to make money. I thought that was the only way. So I tortured myself with overachieving at work. Also, I used to run marathons, and not because I loved running, because I loved to torture myself, because I was never happy with who I was. So if I pushed myself to run faster and do more, it was like I could prove my worth through running and doing something and achieving something. I also had disordered eating. I would restrict my food. I beat myself up in the gym lifting weights because I was disgusted with my body and nothing was ever good enough. Even when I had six-pack abs, I still hated my body. And I was miserable because when you're working out that much and restricting your food, you're basically in a shitty mood all the time because you're miserable. Also, I tolerated toxic relationships that destroyed my self-worth because I thought that was all I deserved, and it just fit into this overall theme of self-torture, basically. Also, I lived in Chicago for a long time, and I dredged through years of brutally cold and windy Chicago winters. And by the way, winter in Chicago is basically, I would say it starts in like end of November. Like you may have a warm streak in November, but it starts end of November and basically goes through April. Even in May, it's probably like in the 50s and extremely windy, so feels even colder than 50. So it's a really brutally cold, long winter in Chicago. But I didn't think anything was available to me, anything better was available to me until I moved to Hawaii. And so my point is, for decades, again, this went on for 40 years, I lived out of obligation, fear, and totally self-abandoned myself for everything outside of myself, society, family, jobs, you know, medals from marathons, just bullshit things. And I was living by other people's rules and I was exhausted, chronically anxious, hated myself, and just severely unhappy and unfulfilled. So my point is, I've spent the last 5 years completely unlearning all of that shit and making my own rules for life. And I'm finally in this place where I'm happy and fulfilled and don't waste time on shit that isn't aligned with me. So that epiphany in the water, it like hit me over the head with the intensity of the cold waves because I was like, I have a choice. I don't have to do this to myself. So in that moment, I was like, I am done surfing, even though this was an expensive surf retreat and I already regret coming. I'm not doing this to myself because I don't have to. So I paddled in. I didn't even tell anyone where I was going because nobody seemed to give a shit about my safety anyway. So I'm like, they won't care if I disappear. So I just paddled in, went back to my room, took a warm shower, and that was it. I was like, I am not surfing the rest of the week. And that was the first time on this entire trip that I felt liberated because I was like, surfing in Morocco is not for me, and that's okay. And it was so liberating just to let go of the cold water, the crowds, the wetsuits, everything. And so the problem is I couldn't escape the wind and the dust. So after I took my warm shower, the wind immediately deposited a new layer of dust all over me. So I was like, okay, might as well go for a walk because everybody else was still surfing. So there was nobody around. So I went for a walk and I noticed, because the way where I was walking, I was like at the top of the cliff looking down at the beach. And on the beach, there were these two guys and a dog. And I saw them struggling with something. And as I got closer, I saw that it was a beached dolphin. And they were struggling with it for a while and then they abandoned it. And I don't know if it had already died, so they gave up, or if because it was like sinking in the sand. So it could have been a case of it was just a lost cause because there was no way that they were going to be able to dig it out. But so then they walk away and then there's just this dead dolphin on the beach. And it was so interesting to me because a dead dolphin just seemed like such appropriate symbolism for the trip. But unfortunately, it also felt like an omen. So I will continue the rest of this story next week in part 7. But until then, I will leave you with a glow tip. When pushing through becomes self-abandonment, because, I was toxic. I don't even know the word for this. I keep calling it toxic positivity myself because I thought I was being resilient. I thought I was being strong, but all I was doing was falling back into that old pattern of abandoning myself again, because I had that pattern of self-torture because I wasn't good enough. And so I apparently needed my external circumstances to reflect that. But now I have the self-worth to know, like, I don't do stuff I don't like, at least not long term. And surfing there for a week was way too long term for me. So I don't do anything anymore in the name of being resilient, stable, grateful, or any of those things. So I finally stepped into my power and was like, this isn't for me, and that's okay. And that is what self-love looks like. And it is such a freeing feeling not to have these external things bog you down and drag you down with what you think you should be, and just basically live by your own rules of life. Because society's rules, family system rules, all these other rules, they're just arbitrary things that we're all blindly following. So if you're going to follow something, you should follow something that puts you in integrity with yourself. So that is why in my own life, I create my own rules for life. And in my clients' lives, we create their rules for life, because that is where true happiness and fulfillment comes. So that is your glow tip for this week. And I will see you next week for part 7 of Spain and Morocco, because yes, there is more. So see you next week.